Hey, what's up everybody, Commander Radix here bringing you a quick video. I am buzzed on coffee. I have I have consumed a bad amount of coffee. And with that, I've decided in this buzzed state, I am going to give to you some basic metaphysics. So, basically, metaphysics is kind of important. It's a key part of philosophy, and philosophy and all the parts of philosophy used to be a very important part of education. However, we don't see that in education that much anymore. We don't see the 7 liberal arts in school anymore. And I think that's put mankind a little bit back. It's pushed us a bit backwards. And I kind of want to do my part, do what I can, do something, even if it's small, to sort of push back against that. And I thought, you know, it might be a good idea to talk about some very basic, fundamental, philosophical, metaphysical ideas here on YouTube. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, by no means am I a philosophy expert. I'm really a philosophy beginner in the grand scheme of things, and I'm not going to be the perfect teacher, so if any metaphysicians want to correct me in this video, then you're free to do so, just as long as we list our sources and talk about where we get our information from. You can see in this video I have the works of St. John of Damascus and his Fount of Knowledge. And then over here I have the complete works of Plato. That's a lot of what I'm working with here today. But basically, while buzzed out on caffeine, I am going to try to explain the basic fundamentals of metaphysics, really of being specifically, in like 5 minutes, or however long this video is. What does it mean to be something? What does it mean to be in this reality? If you're the average kid who's gone through the public education system and then, which has taught no philosophy or metaphysics, and have entered the world with that frame of knowledge, what you might think is, oh, well, I am a collection of atoms, and those atoms are linked together to form chemicals, which are linked together to form some sort of material, and somehow there's matter involved in this, and then we have DNA and cells, and then it just goes up and up until we have this full body, which is me and all these constituent parts. You fool, you absolute liberal. Let me ask you this. At around every 7-year interval, if you check in with the atoms of your body, the cells of your body, you're going to find that the cells in your body that were in your body 7 years ago have died, and in their place are new cells when you check your body 7 years afterwards. I know this isn't a perfect structure. I know it's not like all the cells die immediately then come back. You don't despawn and respawn, right? But once all your cells are gone, do you stop being you? If I were to commit a crime, let's say I go out into the world and shoot a man, and then I run from the cops and I hide in the trees and I... What am I talking about? But if I avoid the law for 7 years, you know, let's say I avoid the law for 7 years, and once those 7 years are up, I didn't do the crime. It wasn't me. I wasn't the one who shot the guy in the face. Because that was someone who shared my same place in space and time at that point in time, and is contingent with my existence today, but none of the cells, none of the atoms involved in my body at that point in time are in my body 7 years later. So that means I can go to the police and say, hey, that wasn't me, Holmes, that wasn't me. Let us consider the story of the ship of Theseus, a ship of Theseus that went out on an adventure and came back piecemeal. Every part had to be replaced. Is it still the ship of Theseus? You know what's funny? Before I even knew about the ship of Theseus dilemma, like back when I was like in middle school, I used to think about if I had a pizza and I like took all the pepperoni off the pizza and put pepperoni from another pizza on the pizza, and maybe slowly like remove the cheese and like put the cheese on there. If I took every piece of the pizza off one by one and put a new piece back to replace it, when does it stop being that pizza? Likewise, we have the transhumanist movement where you want to cyberneticize your entire body, right? You want to, let's say we replace an arm with a new robotic arm, and then we replace another arm with a new robotic arm, and then the legs, and then the body, and then the head. At what point do you stop being you? The answer, and this is not exactly because we're talking about inanimate and animate matter with the robot example. Let's put that example to the side. But the answer for the pizza, for the ship of Theseus, for your cells, is that you are still you, and that the being of you, that's what we're talking about today, your being, is not actually 100% tied and limited to your matter. This is something that is intuitively obvious to us. This is something that we haven't really lost our intuitive sense yet. But I think a lot of people would have trouble justifying how we are still ourselves after, losing all the cells in our body and having new ones. And yet at the same time, we know after an organ transplant, we're still ourselves, even though a huge chunk of the body is now a new part of the body, materially speaking. And yet we are still ourselves. What's up with that? Well, while we might have a hard time as modern people to explain the phenomenon, the ancients, I say ancients, really people would be able to tell you about this in the 17 and 1800s, but the ancients very well knew what it meant to be, what being was. I wanted this video to be 5 minutes, and I'm at 8 minutes recording right now. Being is, we can put it into a formula, it's substance or essence plus accidents. Let's talk about that essence or substance. Greek philosophers tend to use essence. Latin philosophers tended to go more with substance. They can be used interchangeably. Some sources will say they're different things and differentiate between the two. For our purposes today, I'm going to be using the term essence. So essence plus accidents. What is essence? Essence is the immaterial aspect that makes you you. And the very fact of the matter is that we have to have this immaterial concept or else logic wouldn't work. Like, we wouldn't be able to identify things as things and having being if it wasn't for that immaterial aspect. This is why if your philosophy is strictly materialistic, it's not going to work when you put a little bit of thought into it, because being, there's not a good framework of being in that philosophical system of strict materialism. But there's an immaterial aspect called the essence of what makes you you. And there's a lot we can say about the essence. We can talk about the 5 predicables. Maybe we'll talk about the 5 predicables on another day because we don't have enough time in this episode because I want this to be fast. But whatever made the ship of Theseus is still the ship of Theseus. That's the essence of the ship of Theseus. You losing all your material pieces but still being you is the essence of you. That's what's holding you together. Well, now what are accidents? Well, you still need to be, in order for you to have being, in order for you to become what is called en hypostaton, you need to enter into temporality, really. Reality is the intersection of space and time. You are inside space and time, and that is why you are an en hypostaton, a thing that has being. Now, essence is also related to 2 concepts. We can talk about nature, and we can talk about hypostasis. People are going to be upset about pronunciation. I don't care. So, essences are kind of divided into types. We'll talk about that whenever we talk about the 5 predicables. But one thing is the nature, right? You and I both have a human nature, right? Our essences are of the human kind, right? It has properties appropriate to being a human. That's how we can recognize that we have things in common, because we have one nature, and that's in our essence. However, at the same time, we are separate beings with separate being. Yeah. We are separate en hypostatons. And that is where hypostasis comes in. Now, hypostasis can mean 2 things. Sometimes hypostasis can be seen as a synonym with essence. That's one way it's used. Another way it's used is something that is subsisting within itself, okay? The essence also subsists in and of itself, as opposed to accidents. Now, accidents are things that are part of you because you're an hypostaton, you're in reality, but they're not essential to you, meaning they are part of you, yes, but they can also change. These are your cells that change every 7 years. These are things that aren't necessarily key to your being, as in, my eyes are brown, right? Now, if my eyes one day became blue, do I stop being myself? No. That's something that can change. My hair is getting really long. When I get a haircut, does that change who I am? No. So these aren't accidents. Don't think of like mistakes, but accidents in that they aren't what you subsist in. These aren't things that give you your being. These are things that are part of your being, but they don't give you your being, as opposed to your essence, which doesn't rely on anything else to exist. Kinda, we'll talk about that another day. And then, because essences are mostly, like, there's the human essence, right? Then we have the hypostasis, which I'm usually going to use, as long as I'm not talking about, like, the Trinity. I'm usually going to use the term hypostasis to talk about, individuals, right? Individuals who have the same kind of essence, right? That is, the same nature. We are persons. That's another way to translate hypostasis. Persons. And by the way, some say that even accidents themselves are anhypostatic, which makes sense, that they're part of being in reality, in temporality, in space and time. Now, there's another layer to this, another layer to being. There's the essence plus the accidents equals being. Now, this is part of the essence, part of the nature, but the nature has some properties to it that are proper to it. For example, the essence of a human is often called a rational animal. It is an animal that has the ability to rationalize with a higher level of intelligence, of sapiency. Because there are other type of animals, and we can talk about how that works within the essence when we talk about the 5 predicables. But there are some things that are proper to an essence, and it is possible for a being to do something that is, like, especially a living being, it is possible for a living being to do something that is not proper to the properties of its nature. For example, it is possible for a human that is a rational animal to not be rational. The problem is, it's not being a human, right? It's not being a human. It's missing the mark when it does so. This is a bottle of coffee, of black coffee. Now, it has a purpose. Its being has a purpose. It has a telos. We'll have to talk about telos another day. We'll talk about Aristotle's 4 causes another day, because that's also plays a role in being. But it has things that are proper to it. It's a bottle. It's to be drunken, right? To be drunk from. And it contains coffee, right? If I start using this as a hammer to put together a new house, I'm going to have a bad time, because I am using this item, this thing that has being, for something that's not in its nature. And there might be some properties that it has in common with the hammer. It is solid in as much as it's not a liquid, right? The bottle is, but it's not the density that needs to be. It doesn't have the handle, it doesn't have anything that makes it a hammer. So a hammer, part of being a hammer is being a hammer. Existence is not just being itself, it involves doing. That's why being comes from to be. It's a verb. Existence is a verb. In a way, if it makes it more clear for you, you are not a human being. You are a human doing. And therefore, when we don't act like humans, we are missing the mark and on the road to non-existence, I guess. Which kind of gets into concepts of hell, but we'll talk about that another day. But so, we've covered the basics of being today. It's essence plus accidents, into temporality. Boom, you have yourself a being, and that being has a nature that is proper to it, in which existence is upheld by the being acting in accordance to that nature. We've also touched a little bit about how purely limited to material philosophies are not gonna go far. We talked about enhypostaton, that is to be something that has being. We talked about hypostasis. Yeah. I've been recording for 20 minutes. This video is supposed to be 5 minutes. Whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. See ya! Susan's on the frenzy end.
Shut